What if a single change in Washington could mean hundreds of dollars back in your pocket this year and possibly every year after that? What if it was already in motion? That is exactly what we are seeing now. A new stimulus style proposal is building real momentum. It is not just talk, it is linked to real numbers. It uses money the government is already collecting. And the best part, the more money that comes in, the bigger the checks get. This could turn into something bigger than a one time payment. It could become a permanent rebate funded by trade policy. And if you stay through to the end, you will understand exactly how much is at stake and who stands to benefit most. If you are someone who depends on a fixed income, if you are working but falling behind, if you are retired or just trying to make ends meet, this matters. The rising cost of living, the price of food and gas, these things hit everyone but especially seniors and low-income households. This proposal is not just another promise. It is designed to give back a share of the money already being collected through tariffs. If you are tired of waiting for something real, this could be the update you have been hoping for. So, what are we covering today? A new rebate bill introduced in Congress, a massive spike in tariff revenue that could fund it, a key Federal Reserve meeting that might trigger wider action, and the real numbers behind it all. No guessing, no speculation. Just what we know right now. And by the time we are done, you will see why this rebate could be the first step in a much bigger shift. Not just a check, but a long-term benefit tied directly to the economy. If you care about staying ahead of this and making sure you understand your options, then stay locked in. This kind of news matters, and most people will miss it until it is too late to act. So let's get into the details and keep our eyes on the facts. The big news broke yesterday. Missouri Senator Josh Hawley officially introduced the American Worker Rebate Act of 2025. This bill proposes a $600 check to working Americans. It would be funded entirely by the money the United States collects from tariffs on imported goods. Not new taxes, not borrowing, just money that is already coming in. Here is why that matters. Tariff revenue this year is exploding. Just weeks ago, it was around $100 billion. But in the latest update, it is now over $150 billion. That is a 50% increase in a short time. And the checks are tied to that number. The more tariff money the government collects, the bigger the checks get. The bill says no less than $600, which means that is just the floor, not the ceiling. These numbers are not estimates. They are published by the Treasury and Customs and Border Protection. They come from the same government sources that track taxes and spending. And if current trends hold, annual tariff revenue could top $300 billion. That would make this rebate a serious recurring benefit, not just a one-time boost. There is already a model for this. The Alaska Permanent Fund dividend gives state residents a yearly payout based on oil revenue. It is not political, it is policy. And it works. In some years, Alaskans have received over $1,300 just for living there. Now imagine that kind of system applied to the whole country. That is what this bill is pointing toward. This proposal also avoids a lot of the common fights in Congress. It does not need new taxes. It does not increase the deficit. And it does not rely on emergency declarations. Instead, it creates a loop. Collect tariff money. Return part of it to the people. It is simple, transparent, and scalable. If tariff income keeps rising, so does the size of the check. This is not just a theory. In past downturns like 2008 and 2020, stimulus checks helped stabilize the economy. People spent the money, paid off bills, bought groceries, and now we may be heading into a similar moment. Prices are still high, growth is slowing, and the Federal Reserve is facing pressure to act. That brings us to what happens next. Today is a key day. The Federal Reserve is wrapping up its meeting. While rates are expected to stay steady, all eyes are on the statement from Chair Jerome Powell. If he signals concern about a slowing economy or increased risk of recession, it could open the door to more aggressive policy moves. And that includes possible support for ideas like the American Worker Rebate. This is not just a theory. In past downturns like 2008 and 2020, stimulus checks helped stabilize the economy. People spent the money, paid off bills, bought groceries. And now we may be heading into a similar moment. Prices are still high, growth is slowing, and the Federal Reserve is facing pressure to act. That brings us to what happens next. Today is a key day. The Federal Reserve is wrapping up its meeting. While rates are expected to stay steady, all eyes are on the statement from Chair Jerome Powell. If he signals concern about a slowing economy or increased risk of recession, it could open the door to more aggressive policy moves. And that includes possible support for ideas like the American worker rebate. The Fed does not make laws, but their signals influence everything. If they say the economy needs a push, Congress listens, markets react, and proposals like this get taken more seriously. So, depending on what is said in the press conference today, this rebate plan could suddenly move to the front of the line. Let's talk about real world impact. For a working family or a retired individual, a $600 check is not just extra cash, it is groceries for a month. It is help with the electric bill. It is a tank of gas or two. And if this becomes an annual rebate instead of a one off check, that starts to look like a real policy change, not just temporary relief. Some people are saying this is all politics, that the money is not really there. But those claims are not true. The money is already being collected. Tariffs are a real revenue source. The Treasury confirms it. And this bill does not depend on future taxes or passing a massive new budget. It is a direct return of collected funds. That is a key difference from many past stimulus plans. The mechanics are also straightforward. When the U.S. imposes a tariff on an imported product, that money is paid by the importer to the U.S. government. That revenue goes into the Treasury. Right now, that money is being used like general tax revenue. This plan would earmark a portion of it for direct payments to workers. A rebate, not a credit, not a loan, just a return of funds. Of course, there are trade-offs. Tariffs can increase prices on some goods. So the question becomes, does the rebate make up for those price hikes? For many people, the answer could be yes, especially if checks rise above $600 as more revenue comes in. That is why this is such an important debate. Because it is not just about politics. It is about math, input and output. Looking ahead, what happens if this plan gains traction? The most likely outcome would be an annual rebate system similar to Alaska's. If tariff levels stay high, we could see yearly checks sent to eligible workers. The amount might vary, but the structure would be in place. And that is a big shift. It would mean the government is giving back part of what it collects, not just spending it behind closed doors. Another angle to consider is how this rebate model could eventually extend beyond just tariffs. Some lawmakers are already discussing how other forms of revenue could be tied to direct payments. For example, certain environmental fees or digital service taxes could be pooled and redistributed in similar ways. The idea is simple. If the government is collecting large sums from specific activities that impact everyday Americans, then why not return a share of that money to the public?